Welcome back. In the previous episodes, we explored how Work IQ understands work and how that intelligence becomes accessible to other agents through A to A. Today, we're focusing on the execution layer, how intelligence safely turns an action using Work IQ MCP and CLI. Work IQ MCP allows Copilot agents to securely observe, retrieve, reason over, and act across M365 workloads, including files, emails, meetings, chats, calendars, SharePoint sites, business systems, and collaboration artifacts. And every interaction is permission-trimmed, auditable, and compliant by design. For developers, this unlocks powerful scenarios. Using familiar environments like GitHub Copilot CLI, you can invoke Copilot-grade intelligence to securely access and reason over documents in your M365 tenants, all without bypassing identity permissions or governance.
Welcome to the third episode of the Work IQ series. I'm Paolo Pialorsi, Senior Cloud Advocate, and today we are going to talk about Work IQ with MCP and CLI. So first of all, in order to better dig into the topic, let's start from a recap of the architecture of Work IQ. Work IQ APIs is based on chat, the chat experience, on context, the context of the user interacted with Work IQ API, a set of tools to provide actual actions on top of the chat and the context, and workspaces whenever we need to run long-running tasks in Work IQ through the Work IQ APIs. Behind the scenes, we have all of the organizational intelligence we have inside of our organizations. And the goal of Work IQ and Work IQ APIs is to make it possible to unlock the organization intelligence to every agent out there. And that's why we provide Work IQ API through three different protocols. We have the A2A protocol, agent to agent, that you have already seen in the previous episode with Aicha and Darrell. We have the REST protocol, and we have the MCP protocol, which is the actual topic of this episode. So first of all, let me try to explain you why we need MCP as a protocol supported and offered by Work IQ APIs. Well, MCP stands for Model Context Protocol, and it is an open source standard that you can use to connect applications to external systems. MCP, we used to say that it is almost like a universal plug for AI. And in fact, you can think about MCP as when you think about a USB-C connector for your own devices like a smartphone or a tablet. Well, with MCP, you connect one agent with external services and tools to do actions, to request the execution of actions outside of your agents. This is really powerful because it helps developers to easily create agentic solutions relying on external services and capabilities. And it also allows the users to interact with their agent using natural language and allowing the orchestrator of the agents to understand what is the best MCP tool to use, to invoke, to achieve the goal of the user. So, starting from this point of view, we can better understand why in Work IQ we have support for MCP. And specifically, we introduced with Work IQ API a unified Work IQ MCP server, which is a server that allows us to have, through a set of generic tools, the capability to work with all of the information and all of the intelligence we have inside our Microsoft 365 ecosystem and more. So, for example, with the unified Work IQ MCP server, we can get direct access to mails, calendar, files, people, chat, and more of the content that we have in our organization. We can provide also the ability to do actions on top of data. So we can not only retrieve that data and that information, but we can also execute actions on top of that data based on the verbs that we are going to use. So we can ask for something, we can fetch, we can create, update, and so on and so forth, as I will show you shortly in an actual demo. And based on the resource path that we use to make a request against and targeting the unified MCP server of Work IQ, we can get different results and we can target different resources. And the overall idea is that through this MCP server, we can get a different shape of the response based on the actual content that we are targeting. And that's why we also have a get schema tool that we can use to dynamically discover the shape of the data that we are going to use. With this technology, with this protocol, the agents consuming the Work IQ MCP protocol can dynamically understand the data and the options that are available for them, so that we can easily create agentic-based solution that can interact with the knowledge and with the intelligence we have inside our organizations. One of the scenarios where we can use, for example, Work IQ and Work IQ MCP is through the CLI tools that we have in Work IQ. And in fact, we have a Work IQ CLI that can rely on the MCP protocol to give you at CLI level information and content about what you target with your prompts and with your requests. And the same happens with a really powerful tool that I really love, the GitHub Copilot CLI, which can rely on a plugin for Work IQ, which again, under the cover, uses the MCP protocol to reach all of the content, all of the information and the intelligence we have inside of our organization. So now, I think it is really interesting to dig into the actual practical demo of what you can do with Work IQ and Work IQ MCP. So I'm going to switch to demo environment and show you how you can, in practice, rely and benefit of Work IQ MCP. This is my demo environment. I'm in a demo tenant. And in order to use Work IQ through any of the protocols offered by Work IQ API, you always need to have a security in place. And the security for Work IQ is based on open authorization and Entra ID, since the content we target is inside our tenant. So here, for example, I have the Work IQ application registered in my tenant, and you can find additional information about how to register Work IQ in your own tenant as well by going to the website related to this series of episodes, and I will share a link with you right after this demo. And once you have registered the Work IQ in your tenant, you can easily register also a consumer application that you can use to retrieve an access token, an open authorization access token, and to get access through that access token securely to the content of Work IQ and of your organization. So let me show you how it works. Here, for example, I have a Work IQ consumer application that I registered in my tenant. In this application, of course, since it is an Entra ID application, I have a client ID, which is the unique ID of my application, and I have a target tenant ID. Plus, in the authentication settings, I have a bunch of options to use this application and to authenticate when consuming Work IQ through this application. Then, when it comes to the security part and the retrieval of the token, when we use the client credentials protocol, we can also rely on a client secret that I registered for this application. And then in the API permission section, I have a specific permission granted to this application. The permission is called workiqagent.ask. And this is actually a permission which is part of a set of permissions that we have available if we go to APIs my organization uses and we search for Work IQ. Here we see we have Work IQ, and this is a very important information. When it comes to Work IQ, we can select delegated permissions, which means permissions which will allow us to create or to request an access token under the identity of a specific user. This is really important because it means that when we consume Work IQ API with MCP or with whatever else the protocol we like, what happens under the cover is that we are going to consume Work IQ with the identity of a specific user, and as such, we can get the security context and the intelligence context of that specific user. So all of the memory, all of the settings, all of the information are those of the user we use or of the token we use to access Work IQ. So now I'm configuring a delegated permission, and the delegated permission I'm going to use is the workiqagent.ask, which is the one I'm going to use to interact with an ask request with Work IQ through MCP. And this is a permission that I already granted to my demo application, so it's already there, it's already granted by the admin of this tenant. So now what I need to do is just to make the open authorization handshake to retrieve an access token, and then I will be able to unlock the capabilities and start consuming Work IQ through MCP. So what I'm going to do is going to use the MCP inspector, which is a really powerful tool that we can use to inspect, as the name implies, the behavior of an MCP server. And what I'm going to do is to, first of all, go through the open authorization handshake. And then, once I've got an access token, I will be able to consume MCP. So just to give you an idea, and just for the sake of completeness, in the authentication settings, I configure the ID of the application that I was showing you before. I have the secret that we saw before. I have the redirect URI, and I have the permission scope that I need, which is the WorkIQ agent.ask that I was talking about before. So now, once I have all of the settings in place, I can go through the quick authentication flow, which means that I'm going to authenticate with the user account I have in the target demo tenant that I'm using. And once I've got back an access token, I can securely connect to WorkIQ API over the MCP protocol. And now I can list all of the tools, the MCP tools available through the unified MCP server of WorkIQ. As you can see, we have the Ask tool, which allows me to ask a question to my MCP Copilot to get back information about email, meetings, file, and so on and so forth. But I can also do stuff like, for example, list all of the agents so that I can target a specific agent. I can work with specific entities like delete one entity, do an action, create an entity, the get schema I was referring to before, and so on and so forth. So we have something like 10 different tools, which allows us through this unified MCP server to achieve our goal, interacting with all of the content and the intelligence we have in our target tenant. So now let's say that I want to rely on the Ask tool. So let's say that, for example, I want to start from a very basic request. So in this tenant, despite I know who I am, I want to make a prompt, a question for who am I, what is my role. This will be my initial prompt that I'm going to ask through this tool to the WorkIQ MCP server. Takes a while, it is processing my request, and I will get back a response, which is not just the raw data that I'm looking for, but it is actually a response based on the intelligence, on the LLM that I have backing WorkIQ. So it will not just be my name, it will actually be a more comprehensive response about the information and the intelligence that I have in my tenant. Should be here in a matter of few seconds, and once we get the answer, you will be able to see and to appreciate the quality of the answer we get, and here we are. The request was successful, and as you can see here, I got back an answer, which is a rich answer with information about who I am, with deep links to information to dig into the answer and stuff like that. And this is indeed really powerful, and it is available to any agent that want to use the MCP protocol to rely and to consume the WorkIQ MCP unified server. But now we can even do more. For example, in this demo tenant, I've got an email from myself, from another account, and in this email, I have the description of an hypothetical software project that I want to create for a customer. So, as you can see in this email, we have information about the goal of the project, the data structure for this software project, which is a project to do software-based project management. We have some technical requirements, and so on and so forth. So now let's imagine that we want to rely on the MCP server of WorkIQ to get information about that specific email, but we don't want to extract the raw content of the email. We actually want to process the information inside the email to get a meaningful response based on what's inside the actual email. So my next question will be, what are the main requirements of an email that I've got about a new project management software for Java Insurance? This will be my question. And let me ask this question. And now, again, thanks to the intelligence of WorkIQ behind the scenes, the engine will retrieve the information in the email I'm looking for, will process with the intelligence layer the information, and will give me the answer based on what I'm really looking for. So not the whole content of the email, but actually the main requirements that are defined and described in that specific email. So that if I have an agent which is willing to process this information, it will be able to start from the pre-processed response that I've got back from the MCP server. And again, the request was successful, and here I can see that I found a relevant email with this information here and this and that. And I can see the functional requirements and I can see all of the information extracted through the intelligence of Work IQ based on the actual content of the email. Now, this is cool, but we can even do more. In the shoes of a developer, for example, let's imagine that you have got this email and you want to use it to actually do something on top of this email with the technical and functional requirements. So that's why I'm switching to my console environment. And here, of course, we can use one tool, which is the Work IQ CLI tool, which is a command line tool that we can use and you can install on your environment. And through this one, we can simply say Work IQ, and we can, as you can see, ask a specific question and provide a text for the question we want to send to the Work IQ MCP server. This is one option. But another option we have is also to rely on tools like, or agents like GitHub Copilot CLI. So I can start Copilot with the banner because I love the banner of GitHub Copilot. Now I'm going to start GitHub Copilot CLI. And what I'm going to do within the context of GitHub Copilot CLI, since in GitHub Copilot CLI I have the plugin for Work IQ, as I will show you shortly, I can provide exactly the same prompt, but I can also use the output of the MCP request I'm going to make to Work IQ to actually process the response and create scaffold on the fly with vibe coding a solution based on those functional requirements. Just to give you an idea of the power of this technology. So I can search, for example, for the plugin that I have, and I can list all of them. And you can see that I have the plugin for Work IQ inside GitHub Copilot CLI. And what I can do now, again, as I did before, is to provide exactly the same prompt as before. So what are the main requirements of the email that I've got about the new project for Zava Insurance? Cool. Now, this request will trigger a request to the MCP server of Work IQ. And by doing so, I will be able to have inside the context of my GitHub Copilot agent, and of course I need to consent to make this tool request. This is what I'm doing, and you can see MCP Work IQ is the ask tool that I'm going to use right now. By doing so, in the context of my GitHub Copilot agent instance, I will then have all of the technical and functional requirements of my solution, and as such I can say, okay, let's create a solution which is compliant with the requirements I got from the customer. Of course, I'm not going to do that right now because it will take quite some time to do the whole scaffolding of the solution. But I think you have got the idea, right? You can go through Work IQ and through the MCP protocol. You can retrieve information from your organization, and you can provide that information to any external agent, which can, of course, be any technology, and can also be GitHub Copilot CLI, if it is the scenario where you want to use the organization intelligence to do scaffolding and vibe coding of custom developed solution. And as you can see here, I have the functional and the technical requirements. And so I could say, okay, so now let's create an application, let's vibe code an application based on these requirements. I think it is a really, really powerful technology. So let me briefly switch back to the slide deck just to wrap up. And what I want to remind you is that if you are interested in this technology, you should definitely go to akms/IQ-series. There you will find videos and cookbooks about the Foundry IQ and Work IQ technology. And soon there will also be Fabric IQ, so that you can dig into the Microsoft IQs and you can learn more about how to leverage this powerful platform to create agentic solutions which rely from any technology on the intelligence and information we have inside our own organizations. That said, thank you, and it's now time for a quick recap doodle from Tomomi. Thank you so much.
Hey, this is Tomomi, and here's my recap. In this part, the focus is on MCP, Model Context Protocol. This is what allows agents to call Work IQ as a set of tools. So instead of just generating answers, it can pull real context from Microsoft 365 and take action. Through the unified MCP server, Work IQ exposes Microsoft 365 to access things like chats, files, emails, and even org data. So now agents aren't just reasoning, they can actually access and operate on real enterprise data in a structured way. You can try this out with command line tools to interact with Work IQ directly from your terminal. You have GitHub Copilot CLI, which is a conversational AI assistant. Also, you have the Work IQ CLI tool. Or you can just use GitHub Copilot CLI with Work IQ as a plugin to bring the enterprise context. If you ask, who does John report to? Copilot can call Work IQ, pull that org context, and return the real answer. Work IQ MCP gives an agent a standard way to connect, pull context, and take action.